Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Donna Gilman, and we are here today on Over It to answer some of your most pressing relationship questions. And we have Jen here today to read some of your questions to us. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
So, Jen, what do our listeners have baked up for us today? What's the first question?
Well, that's a really, really good one. We've got a bunch of people from different walks of life who are in different kinds of relationships who have lots of questions for you. So when you're ready, let's just dive right in and start
I'm
getting to
ready. We
them.
haven't done any prep for this, so this is going to be off the cuff, but let's do it.
I love it. I love it. Over it goes wild. Okay. So the first question we have is from a listener who says, I find myself in a narcissistic relationship. I'm finding I've lost myself in this relationship, and it's finally time to break free. I haven't the slightest idea what that looks like anymore. Help.
Sure. Well, we often hear this word narcissistic kind of thrown around. And I think that there's sort of like a street kind of interpretation of narcissistic, and then there's really a clinical diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. And so I'm really not sure what kind of variety of narcissism we're talking about. But if your partner is even displaying some really concerning behaviors that feel narcissistic in nature, like a high level of self absorption and a low level of empathy. And you're feeling like there may be some emotional abuse or neglect certainly going on, and you're just tired of those cycles of behavior and you want out. I guess my first thought would just be, do you have an individual therapist in your life? And if you don't, can you get one to help you kind of process and walk this through? And of course, if there's any kind of domestic violence going on, to be reaching out to domestic violence shelters and other resources in your local area. But if what you're really trying to figure out is how do I sort of disentangle my life from a partner and a relationship that I feel no longer serves me, I would say your absolute best bet is to get yourself pronto into some individual therapy to really just strengthen your resolve, your self-esteem, and help you to kind of walk through like, what are my next steps? Because leaving the relationship is going to be obviously a huge flex and a necessary step for you. And then there's the repair work of what does it take to sort of recover from being in a relationship where there may have been some narcissistic kind of abuse or dynamic patterns that have been really damaging to you. And then what kind of got you in this situation to begin with? And I say that without any blame, but really to start to get to the roots of what's going on with sort of your self-esteem and what aspects of your selfhood are not like fully healed or developed yet. When you get on the other side of this, like, what are you going to do with you? How are you going to thrive? How are you going to fulfill yourself and your own goals and dreams if there's been some aspect of your life that's been really wrapped up or revolving around this person? It might be time to really start doing a deep dive into like, who am I and what do I need in order to be happy and fulfilled, not just in a relationship, but in the day to day of my life. And for many people who are getting out of a narcissistic relationship, there can be some real learning curves in terms of trying to figure out who am I and who do I want to be and how do I align with that. So, thank you for your question. It's a really complex one, and I'm giving you kind of a Cliff Notes version of an answer. But there you go.
That's fantastic. I guess for me, I have a question about the question, which
Mhm.
is when you finally make that decision to walk out the door, how does one gain that strength? What is the mantra that someone has to tell themselves to finally get them to break free of a relationship that does not serve them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess backing up from that, I mean, that's a great question about finding the strength, maybe backing up from that. How do we know if the relationship that we're in is damaging to us? How do we know if the relationship we're in is salvageable? How do we know if we could get our needs met in a relationship? So all of that could either be addressed through individual work and or, if the partner is willing, through couples work. And, we talk a lot about couples therapy, and there's this sort of traditional form of couples therapy, which is maybe we're going in for weekly treatment to see, if and how we can shift our dynamic. But there's also something called discernment counseling, which is for couples who are sort of on the brink of collapse, of separation, of breakup, of divorce. And at least one person is really questioning whether it makes sense to work on the relationship at this time or to leave. Now, discernment counseling is a very specific protocol. Not all couples therapists are trained in it. And it does require the participation of both partners, even if the partners ultimately come to two different conclusions about the relationship. But I'll just float that out there because a lot of people don't know that that exists, and it's a really powerful protocol. So let's say you've actually gotten to the point where you feel like it's time to go, and you're really just trying to build up, that emotional muscle to leave. I would say that, again, working with an individual therapist and hopefully leaning on the support of friends and family, I think one of the things you have to keep in mind is that there is no relationship that's worth prioritizing over your own mental health and well-being. So I'll say that again. There is no relationship that's worth prioritizing over your own mental health and well-being. And so often people come into therapy and their primary objective is to try to salvage, save, or change the relationship. And in essence, that really is taking priority over their emotional health and well-being. And that's something that we want to start to deconstruct right away in therapy, whether that's individual or, believe it or not, couples therapy.
Awesome. So the message I'm getting is love thyself.
Love thyself, that you are the main character in your own life. And there's a way in which you need to own your own life. You need to really inhabit your life as if it's yours to win or lose. It's nobody else's. And of course, there's a lot of complexity when there are children involved. But I would say that idea that this is my life, I need to own this as if it's my life. I need to inhabit this as if it's my life. It could be a key mantra. What else you got, Jen?
All right. Awesome. My partner tends to respond with really passive aggressive comments. I find it uncomfortable and triggering. How do I honor my boundaries and ask that they stop with the passive aggressive commentary without making my partner feel like I'm trying to change who they are?
That's a great question. So one of the things that I tell couples, and it sounds really silly, but when your partner says something that's a real zinger for you, try saying something like, ouch. People laugh at that and they think it's silly, but say, ouch. And if your partner says, ouch, what do you mean, ouch? In sort of a contemptuous way, say, I would really like to be able to listen to what you have to say. I would ask that you reframe it because what you just said felt hurtful to me. Ultimately, the message here is, I want to be able to listen to you, partner. I want to be able to pay attention to what you're saying. And I can't because I'm feeling hurt or flooded right now, which is really different than saying, you jerk, or you need to say that differently. In essence, we are making a request, but we're also implying that the way that information is being delivered feels hurtful to us in some way. This issue of contempt in relationships and passive aggressive behavior is a form of contempt, is one of those issues that comes up in treatment with couples that really takes some time to work on. And I love the way this has been framed as, I really want to set a healthy boundary for me without shutting my partner out. So again, the message is twofold. I want to hear you. I want to understand where you're coming from, but can you phrase that differently? Because that just felt a little bit hurtful to me.
And I love the ouch factor, because when we think about even ourselves as children, what's the instant thing that we would do when we'd get hurt?
Yeah, I get
Ow.
ouch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch. I mean, the vulnerability in the expression of the partner is key because even when we're hurt, which is really hard to be vulnerable when we're hurt with our partner, we still hope to have an opportunity to create an invitation to work with us differently. So in the moment, we have an option. We can flare and tell them off. We can hit them with some aggression back. We can shut down and pull away. Or we can try something new, which is try to be honest and vulnerable and still keep the door open that they might be willing to try to do it differently.
Excellent.
Great question, listener. What else you
So,
got?
so another great question that we were asked, and this really pertains to the world that we're living in right now, is in this world of disappearing messages, apps, social media, and content, I find it very hard to trust at times. What are some of the things that I can do to help squelch my fears around this and build my security around it?
Well, I guess what they're asking is in this sort of culture of impermanence, how can I stay really grounded in who I am? And I think part of that, I mean, I'm talking as a clinical psychologist, would be to really be able to look at like what is your exposure to things like social media. Even though we use social media, we're on social media, but like how much are we being exposed and what are we being exposed to? What are we putting into our brains? I mean, that would be true even if we were talking about reading. Like, how much are you listening to the news? How badly is it impacting you? How can you stay informed without like losing your hope in humankind? So, there's like a tipping point here for all of us. But I mean, think about what are the grounding principles in your life? Do you have any grounding practices that help you to remember who you are? For people who have any access to nature, that's like an easy one. Nature is healing, nature is grounding. Getting into nature for even 10 or 15 minutes, we know can be just as powerful as an antidepressant. Having a diary where you record your own thoughts and feelings is a really powerful practice. Having any kind of a meditative practice, yoga, exercise of any kind, checking in with friends or family who really get you and you can do reality checking with. Like, so I read this and I don't even know what to think or believe. And can you help me to just kind of hold this and feel into what this brings up for me? I mean, any of those are a way to sort of ground when it feels like, everything under us and around us is shifting so rapidly.
Fantastic. And there's a second part to the question,
Oh, no.
which asks,
Okay.
I know, which asks, how do I manage my jealousies when it comes to social media and my partner?
How do I manage my jealousies when it comes to social media and my partner? So I wonder if they're talking about things that their partner is posting, or they're talking about, just sort of comparing themselves to what they see other people posting. I mean, either way, right? If we're talking about, I'm not really comfortable with what my partner is posting on social media, this is a toughie, right? Because in a relationship, we want to be able to be transparent and vulnerable about our boundaries. So if our partner is posting things that are making us feel uncomfortable, I mean, I think step one is just having that conversation. I'm not here to sort of obliterate your free will, partner, but I have to say, those pictures that you're posting of the kids, it's making me really feel uncomfortable. Can we have a discussion about how we both feel about that? Or I had a really strong reaction to that meme you posted. It seemed really racist or sexist, and that's not sitting well with me. Can we talk about it? So just opening up that conversation. the second scenario where, we're all influenced by what we're seeing on social media and how it's making us feel and how it adds to imposter syndrome and how it adds to us all doing the compare despair kind of routine where I just don't measure up. Like, look at these people on vacation and look at that woman's skin and look at that person's weight. And, I'm just not good enough. I'm not producing enough. I'm not funny enough. It's like, again, like we have to all like just look at how much we're exposing ourselves, what we're exposing ourselves to, and what are the counterbalances in our life to remind us that we matter, that we're special, that we're beautiful, just as we are. So that is, in a nutshell, how I would respond to that. And thanks for the question.
That needed to be in the Barbie movie. I'm sorry, but that was just fantastic. um, Another listener writes in and asks, the holidays are coming around and family is really important to both my partner and I. It feels like most of the time I spend with my partner's family. How do I broach this subject and make sure that we are sharing equal time with our families?
That's okay. So first of all, I want to talk about how do we build a frame to approach our partner about anything. So building a frame, you can think about like, you don't build a house without a frame. You don't start a meeting at work without some kind of frame of knowing like, what are we going to be talking about? What's the intention? What's the agenda? How do I wish to show up at this meeting? And how do I invite others to participate? So it's the same thing when we approach our partner. If your partner's in the middle of something and you have a hot button topic to bring up, start by building a frame. So the frame could be something like, hey, partner, is now a good time to talk? I'd like to talk about, and name the topic. And then see if you can get consent. If your partner goes, are you kidding me? I've got my hands full right now. This is now not a good time to talk. Your temptation might be to shut down and pull away. But you could say, okay, when would be a good time to talk? And hopefully they'll meet you on the bridge and say, I don't know, maybe tonight after dinner. Great. So then when you approach them after dinner, you say, I'd really like to talk about this. And first you want to try to acknowledge something positive about the situation. Like, when we spend the holidays with your parents or your family, it's been really enriching for the kids. They get to be around their cousins and yada, 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 and make some BS up if you have to. But then get to the point, which is, I'm wondering if you'd be open to talking about doing the holidays a little bit differently this year. Because what I'm noticing is that a part of me really is missing my family at the holidays. And, in years past, it really just hasn't come up so much for me. For whatever reason, this year, it's really coming up strong. Now, at this point, your partner may not have the best reaction, right? Maybe your partner's going to flare and say, well, I already told my mom we were coming, right? Deep breath. I know we already told your mom we're coming. I don't want to change any plans yet. I want to just have a conversation with you in a bubble where we maybe talk about some different scenarios, i.e., could we split the time? Could we spend the day after Christmas with my aunt? Where could we find some flex over Christmas break or whatever the holiday is that you're celebrating so I can get a little bit of this piece met? Is that a conversation you'd be willing to have with me? So all along the way, I'm flexing a lot of emotional muscle here. Like I'm not shutting down and pulling away because it doesn't immediately go my way. I keep sort of inviting my partner into a conversation that's collaborative, where neither of us is jumping to a solution or a quick fix. We're just playing with some different ideas. That was a really long-winded answer.
It was a very good answer for a very complex question. Because
Awesome.
people are very touchy with their families, especially around the holidays.
Great. Well, I think we have time for maybe one more.
Wonderful. This listener writes, I have been with my partner for a very long while. I haven't fallen out of love with my partner, but the spark has definitely died down. He doesn't seem to see anything wrong with it. I'm the one who's struggling. How do I reignite things for myself?
Well, I like the framing of how do I reignite things for myself? Obviously we always say it takes two and blah, 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 but really it's also sort of tuning into how do I also take some accountability? That doesn't mean it's all on me by any means. Of course, I'm going to say it's worth having a conversation with your partner and to frame it as, I really want to be close to you. I want to be even closer than we are right now. Can we talk about that? And I'm not looking for you to fix it or solve it. I just want to kind of brainstorm with you. But in addition, we can ask ourselves, like, how am I bringing myself or not bringing myself to emotional or physical intimacy right now with my partner? Are there ways that I'm holding back? Are there internal conflicts that I'm feeling that I'm not really talking about? How emotionally safe are each of us feeling in this relationship right now? I mean, you only know how you're feeling, but how's your partner feeling? What things used to work in the past that maybe have fallen by the wayside? How are you shifting and changing, but maybe you haven't given your partner the memo? How are they shifting and changing and they haven't given you the memo? So, I mean, I think there's a lot there to explore. But one of the things people jump to is, oh no, the spark's gone. We'll never be able to get it back. And that's not necessarily true at all. It's just that we're often not given any tools or ideas in daily life about how to do that and how both we can take personal accountability for the pieces that we can. And we can also invite our partner into a conversation about it. Now, those conversations certainly can be very sensitive and maybe are best facilitated by a professional. If you have to go there, go there. Like, that's a good thing to do for your relationship. It does not spell doomsday, which is a lot of people worry. Yes, these are tender conversations, but like being able to say, for me, it feels like our relationship feels a little flat these days. And I'm really wanting to just talk about maybe ways that we could spice things up without putting a ton of pressure on either one of us. Can we talk? That would be one suggestion I have. It sounds like our listeners have like some really good relationship questions. And I would say you can continue to hit us up with your questions. You can find us obviously on Spotify, the Over It podcast. There's space in there where you can write in your questions and comments on the podcast. We definitely invite you to do that. You can also follow us on Dr. Donna Gilman. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, Dr. Donna Gilman or Over It, the podcast. Love hearing from you. Really encourage you to write in. And if you or somebody would like to be interviewed for the podcast, let us know that as well. But for now, I just want to thank Jen and all of our listeners for your questions and say we'll see you soon.
Like and subscribe, guys. Like and subscribe.
Control yourself. Don't drink too much. Don't talk too much. Don't look that way. Don't stare at that boy. Don't giggle. Don't wiggle. That's too short.